All right, we're having a good time. We got Jurassic 5.
By the way, there's no Faraz watch today. He's here. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're back.
Unreal.
Welcome back to the Demand Better podcast, episode 18, where we are your consumer's guide in the health, fitness, and wellness space. I am your host, Corona, and I am joined by Dr. Bo in Superior, Colorado, and award-winning journalist. It's Faraz Javed, who's joining us from Detroit and who is a journalist for XYZ. What's up, Bo? What's up, Faraz?
What's up?
Hello.
Last time I know we got this wrong. Am I pointing at you right now?
You're
Corona?
good. You're pointing right at me right now.
You got it right.
Okay, this time
You
I got
got
it right.
For anyone listening, we are on StreamYard on the video if you're watching, and the video is backwards. So when you think you're moving your right hand or you're touching the right side of your face, it's the other side. So it's confusing. It's confusing. So when you point, it's confusing. All right, we are talking episode 18 about.
Oh, before you do that, we are talking about that. We're sponsored by Fit Care Physiotherapy and Wellness, where the idea is to focus on your fitness so you can avoid the healthcare space. Today's episode is about. Go ahead, Bo.
Social media influencers in this day and age. And we've covered and touched on these concepts before. We've talked about the ease of fitness. We've talked about demanding better from your personal trainer, from your physical therapist. And we're going to kind of bring a lot of that together, specifically talking about social media. For anyone who's seen the film on Netflix, The Social Dilemma, that's kind of some of the stuff we're talking about. And I think the more aware we are of this environment we're in, and almost everyone we know is on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on one of these social media platforms, if not multiple ones, including YouTube. And you guys are watching us now. Even if you're listening to us, you're being influenced by us. So we wouldn't consider ourselves influencers, except maybe Faraz. He's got what? You have 10,000 followers or something like that, right? on Instagram.
Something like that. No,
he's really popular.
And I guess this is exactly what we're going to be talking about. What is considered popularity on social media? Like, what are some of the benchmarks? Is it just the amount of followers? Is it the engagement? Or is it the content? Or is it a combination of things? And I think this is exactly where people get confused, especially when it comes to our topic that we discuss here on Demand Better, is people, trying to achieve their fitness goals, their active lifestyle goals. And one of the things they rely on is social media. There's nothing wrong with it. There's tons of information out there, good and bad. And I guess this is exactly what we're going to be diving into today, how to differentiate between that good content and bad content.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really great way to start this off. But let's figure out. I got a little definition here. So what is an influencer? An influencer are social media users who have a significant number of followers and use their platform to market various goods and services based on brand and partnerships. All right. The average influencer, just to give you a profile, it's the age of 26 to 32. The national average salary, this came from Indeed. The national salary is $52,035. And then their characteristics are 9 times out of 10. They're personable, aligned with the mission, relatable, responsive, consistent, tech-savvy, and creative. So that's the person we're talking about. There are different types of influencers, but those are the people we're talking that are controlling and telling us what to buy. Well, go ahead, take it over.
Yeah, and I think, again, thank you for the definition that we got from Indeed there. I think that it's the aim of today is to help folks differentiate between folks that are or accounts that are entertainment based, and there's usually that disclaimer, hopefully, of this is for entertainment purposes only, even if they're talking about medical type of issues and situations, blood work, all that kind of stuff, versus real life advice. And unfortunately, with this access to information, we want to add this kind of caveat to folks understanding and navigating this wild west is how we would describe it, I think, of social media, and again, getting health and fitness advice. We want to always come back to that. And so To Faraz's point, I want to touch on that for a second. Are we talking about engagement versus followers? We're in a crazy time where I think it's been over a decade at least where book publishers are going to say, hey, you don't have 1 million followers. I'm not even going to publish your book. Come back to me when you have 1 million followers across your multiple platforms. And it's a real thing. I've heard people talk about this. Hey, how big is your newsletter? How big is your mailing list? How many contacts, how many people can you influence? And if that's the case, if you have 1 million people that you can genuinely say between Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, newsletter, and then theoretically, if you put out a book at $20 a pop, there's some expected return there, and it comes back to a numbers game. So I think we're talking a little bit about understanding our experiences of how the sausage is made, and we're trying to share that so that we can go into the next account and the next time you're scrolling Instagram or whichever platform, and maybe being able to say, hey, like if you're taking instant intermittent fasting advice or keto diet things, and like, oh, I saw this girl on, and she's 25 years old and she's got a 6-pack and she lost 800 pounds or whatever. And I think it's important to have more context for that. The one thing I'll throw out right now, and we're going to come back to, is being cautious of these accounts where there is a sales pitch. And another piece that I want to talk about, how the sausage is made, I'm going to throw it all out there, and then I'll let you guys kind of, guide it a little bit, and we'll keep going back and forth that way. But a little bit of how the sausage is made is these algorithms and the teachings are all about how to get more clicks and more likes. And there's this term clickbait, right? So if the name of this article was, watch Kim Kardashian's butt, hold up a champagne bottle or whatever, like that's going to get 1 million or more likely to get more views, more traction, more algorithms. So I've seen and played with all these algorithms. So I think it's important to note that there are specific words, hashtags, times of data post, all these little tips and tricks, all these ways that you can invest in buying some followers. Faraz and I were talking about this yesterday. We're going to go a little more into that, but you can buy followers. Now they're cracking down on that a little bit, but you can stay ahead of how each of these platforms is trying to be very genuine. And they have cracked down, and I think they're doing the best they can to some extent, as long as the money's still rolling. So that's my long kind of introductory, all over the place ramble. I'm going to throw it back to you guys.
No, but I'm just to jump on that point right now. That's why, Faraz is in the news, and the old adage is, if it bleeds, it leads. They're not going to be talking about Susie, who's taking care of these people in the senior home, doing stuff. That's not going to be news, and that's not clickbait. But if it bleeds, it leads. Am I wrong, Faraz?
No, not at all. I mean, I think the most important thing to take away from this conversation is Bo clicks on Kim Kardashian's link. Jokes aside, no. But in all seriousness, yeah, Bo does have a valid point. I mean, it is about, I think in this day and age, we find more content creators, more influencers working towards or understanding the algorithm, which basically helps them generate more followers, more engagement. But are they really providing authentic content that is medically sound? And I'm just talking about our line of conversations that we talk about here in Demand Better. I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, if you're just talking about some mindless, like dancing video or
let me just throw something at you as you're on that point real quick. Is within the fitness space, to be more specific, moving a little away. Well, we can talk about like what does Kim Kardashian do to for her fitness routine, and that's good. And Mark Wahlberg is the other one that gets thrown out there, right? Because he looks good, and we've talked about this Corona's favorite little thing of if you want to get J-Lo's booty, like you better have her genetics, you better have her money, you better have her trainers.
Mom and dad. Mom and dad.
Yeah. So, genetics. I said genetics. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that the other part of the sausage being made kind of algorithm here, I've written and contributed to a lot of fitness content. It almost always has to be, hey, what are the top 3 exercises for low back pain? And the reality is that's going to get clicks, A, and B, people are searching for that. I understand that. But
And
C,
it's
from my perspective, is it's hard to say just do these three things because all low back pain is the same, and it's there's a little bit of authenticity, there's a little bit of playing that game. And here's the other real big disclaimer I want to throw before we jump back to it. And I interrupted you for that, so I'll throw it back to you. And Corona, you can keep your mouth shut. But the last thing I want to disclaim here is we don't want to come across as grumpy old men who are just like, hey, look at our, we don't have enough followers, so we're going to complain about the system. But I think we're finding our way. I think we can acknowledge what the systems are. And I think, again, whether we choose to play in that system or not is a whole nother part of this conversation. But I'll throw it back to you, Faraz. I just want to throw that little grumpy old man disclaimer out there.
Well, I just want to add to us three grumpy old men. No, I just want to add that there's still a lot of great content out there, and there are also influencers, content creators out there who are doing great. And Bo and I were talking about this earlier. For example, MoveU is a good example of a group that is knowledgeable when it comes to effectively treating ailments in your body in terms of like aches and pains, and as a physiotherapist you get a lot of information from them, and they've kind of figured out that sweet happy medium where you can sort of bring the content at the same time, keep it engaging in the Instagram universe. Keep that in mind. Every social media platform has a different viewership, has a different algorithm altogether. And that's another thing that we were talking about earlier, Bo and I, is if you look at MoveU, their followers on Instagram and their followers on YouTube are very different. But then there's another group called, was it Bob and Brad, Bo?
Yeah, so we're talking about physical therapists. I want to just, for anyone not familiar, and so you don't go click on MoveU. And it's funny, every time we talk about it, and Corona had the same response when we were talking about it, is they show a lot of good-looking naked people. I'm going to say naked because they're just showing skin, and it's very catchy. And again, the other piece of how the sausage is made is you need to catch someone's attention in 2 to 3 seconds. Like if you're scrolling, if you've ever done that on Instagram, if you don't see like, oh, what's this butt sticking out of my face? Like what's this person doing with their legs up in the air? And they're talking about perennial sunbathing, which is its own thing. So, and Corona's like, what was that account? I need to go find it. And it's a joke, but that's the reality. People, porn is a thing, guys. I don't know if you guys are familiar with porn, but like it's how our brains work. It's how our brains work, and I think it's worth acknowledging. So, working off sex appeal, sex sells when you talk to marketing people. And the more you push that envelope, I think in the history of sales, Mad Men, all that kind of good stuff.
Sure.
I think it's important to acknowledge that. So MoveU, which is move as in movement university, MoveU. I think I'm gonna, again, they're physical therapists. They're based in San Diego. They're good looking people. And again, they have a great little concept. And I've had people. I think the reality is, what up, Patrick Madden? I think that was my sensei from Seagate, Coney Island. Hey, Patrick. Back in the day, just saying hey. So I do think it's important to come back. He's in San Diego, Patrick. Yes. Sorry to if you want to jump in, Patrick, we appreciate you listening. So
Bo, let me ask you this. Is it wrong for them to play with the algorithm? I feel like they're just playing the game. There's nothing, right. as long as they're giving away knowledgeable and correct content for the most part. I don't see them, using tactics or tools to their advantage, because we have similar influencers and content creators out there who are using the similar tools but giving away wrong information.
Yeah. So again, I do think, to answer your question, they have a good balance of legitimate advice, catching people's attention and saying like, hey, if your pec is tight, and again, they might have a good looking girl with her, cleavage showing, and they're saying, hey, you need to stretch this out. And like, it's good advice. So are they taking advantage? Are they doing something malicious? No, I don't think so. But I do think there are plenty of people out there. And at the same time, if we can get more eyes on this good information, phenomenal. Absolutely. Athlean X is another example of that, where he's super ripped, he's super lean, he's a physical therapist. Again, most of the stuff he talks about is pretty good. He has good experience. He's worked with professional teams. He has a good resume. He talks about that stuff. Sometimes that's the thing. It can be a little over the top. And here's the rub on this whole thing, right? Is when people come to me, and I'm going to bring up another example, and we're talking about some different accounts. So we're not really trying to throw anyone under the bus, but we're trying to use those accounts to, highlight some of these examples. So Knees Over Toes guy is a very interesting one from this perspective. And I've talked about him on my podcast. I've had a few people who implement his services. He's been on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's another super interesting influencer to talk about. But Knees Over Toes, to come back to your question, Faraz, of like, is this good? Is this bad? Is it malicious? Is it unjust that people are doing these tactics and taking advantage of the algorithm? I don't think that it is malicious, but Knees Over Toes guy is addressing, he's a personal trainer. He has no medical training. And he's basically saying, hey, there's a piece of the rehab puzzle missing for people who have knee pain. And he acknowledges this. And he has over 1 million, well over 1 million followers, if not in the multiple millions, because he's really honed in on this message. And he's very good at manipulating the algorithm in whatever he's playing the game. Again, in sports, I know Corona and I can speak to this, is it holding if you didn't get flagged for it? Like, you have to play, you have to,
let me ask you this real quick. The Knees Over Toes guy, if he has no medical qualification to let people know how to fix, their joint problems, knees specifically, is he based? So you've seen his content. Is it accurate? Is it good? Is it flawed?
Right,
should people listen to him?
Thank you for bringing me back there. Yeah, so I would say, having seen it, I think he's bringing up some good points. But this goes back to the ease of fitness that we talked about a few episodes ago. And the fact that I've had a lot of people, I've definitely heard of success stories from Knees Over Toes where people tried physical therapy, tried surgery, and he talks about his own particular experience of having 7 knee surgeries, I believe, and now he can dunk basketballs and all this good stuff. And again, by addressing these things that the traditional medical system does not address. So I think that, to answer your question, I've also heard a lot of people who've tried his program and gotten much worse, because his program is not medical. It is not done with a physical therapist who is licensed. There is no accountability. And people are willing to try that because, A, it's pretty cheap. It's $50 a month versus even one session with me. Let's make the math really easy and call it $200 for 1 hour in person. Now, I have other packages, and we're not going to go into that right now. But to answer your question about Knees Over Toes guy, I do think that maybe 50 to 60% of what he talks about, I like. I pull sleds. He's a big advocate of pulling sleds. And if you have knee issues, pull some sleds. Go into a full range of motion. We've talked about that concept. And that's some of the stuff he's preaching. But to say this is the way every knee should do, and then you get someone who's a 50-year-old woman with a meniscectomy and has pain, and then she comes to me and says, hey, I tried that thing for 6 months, and my knee's way worse than it ever was. Go ahead, Corona.
No, it gets back to this. You're putting especially in the health and fitness space, you're putting your body, your most important assets, in the hands of someone who's treating it just like it's anybody else's body. It's just so you just put your knees over your toes. You know nothing about this person to take this advice. And we continue doing this. And the reason this podcast was made was to give people information. So they're not out there in this information, because we're getting smashed with information. That's all you have coming at you. Content. The algorithm forces people to up the game. That's all it does. Let me show you a booty. We're going to do this. We're going to do this naked. We'll do it. Whatever it is, you're upping the game.
And just real quick, Faraz brought up Bob and Brad, and I wanted to make sure I just address that.
I remember them. Yep.
So they're on YouTube. This is their main platform. They have over 4 million followers there. They're 2 older gentlemen, physical therapists, and they call themselves kind of jokingly the most famous physical therapists on the internet, which very well might be true based on actual engagement and followers. Considering Kelly Starrett's the one I would certainly
Yes.
push people towards. I just had him on my podcast, but his actual numbers of followers is much lower than Bob and Brad. Bob and Brad are very good at being consistent, which is one of the main like things. You go to any social media expert, whatever that means, and that's another term within movement as well. You're a knee expert, you're a fitness expert, you're a guru, whatever these terms are. I think we need to be very skeptical of all of it. And again, come back to like what, and Knees Over Toes guy, again, we'll talk about, hey, we've had 3,000 success stories. It's like, well, okay, but you're not talking about, and I don't expect anyone to be like, well, we've had 5,000 failures. Like, you're not going to put out those numbers. So Bob and Brad, real quick, they're very good at they don't edit. They're not fancy. They're just very good at talking about, hey, here's what you need to know about total knee replacements. Here's how we approach it as a physical therapist. And they just talk. Just like Kelly Starrett, again, another one who I love, is he'll talk for 10 minutes. He'll just set up the camera and he'll talk about, hey, you have, again, some pain here, and here's what you need to know. We're going above, we're going below. We need to know how this is moving. We need to know when we breathe, what are we doing? How does that feel? He's very good at talking you through for 10 minutes, which, again, TikTok says you shouldn't be talking for 10 minutes. But then again, Joe Rogan talks for 4 hours with a guest, and people are listening to the whole thing. So it's a really interesting time. And again, to sum up some of my thoughts and feelings on this whole thing, I mentioned that we're in the Wild West right now of, no regulations is one of the main things we're talking about. And my hope is in the next few years, we will see the cream rise to the top of, hey, we're going to talk about Danielle Davis out of Texas, personal trainer, who was an extreme example of a really bad version of all this. And so at the end of the day, hopefully we're going to see a little bit of extremes. People, again, like Move You, showing tushies and butts and boobs and playing that algorithm. And hopefully in a few years, again, we're going to find a nice balance of, how do we get the best information out there? And can we move the physical therapy profession forward, athletic trainers, personal trainers, all this stuff. So yeah, sorry.
The reality of it is, and this goes for in fitness, the stuff that you got to do to make yourself great and the stuff that you have to do is boring. It's not exciting. It's not fun. You just have to do it. You want shoulder stability. Okay, you can do this rotator cuff exercise. So enjoyable. And then you got some dude on Instagram doing crazy like plyometric shoulder press jumps. I mean, just outrageous stuff. And people strive for that. Yeah. But people aren't. But the stuff that works, the Kelly Starretts of the world, and those guys who are really, really gurus, those people are the ones that aren't going to get the followers because they're not as exciting and splashy as someone else.
And there's enough of a market to go around, fortunately, or however we want to look at it. Again, you have whatever the statistics are. I believe there's 7 billion people around the world who have access to the internet one way or another. So, obviously without going too far down that thought process, but I think it comes back to your point of industry leaders. And this is a general piece of this whole equation that I talk about is the folks that tend to spend a lot of time and have very successful algorithm concepts here and social media presences are generally the ones who you have to start thinking like, how are they working with humans? Like, are they really good at their craft? Which all of these crafts are practices, right? It's a medical practice. Even in personal training, it's not usually referred to as a personal training practice, but you're always learning. You should always be growing. You should always be evolving. So if you're spending a lot of time on social media, and again, when Corona and I started this little project, he was like, I don't know anything about hashtags. I don't know about like, when should I post? What should I post on? Like, I had to kind of give him my very quick, and we're far from optimizing any of that stuff. But the point is, that took away from him learning more about how to work with someone with total knee replacement, which is something I know he's very good at. And I would send anyone who's had a total knee replacement to Corona as a personal trainer before most of the physical therapists that I know, because they're just going to give them, again, a little bit of a cookie cutter approach in the insurance model and all that stuff. And we're not talking about that today.
Episode 2.
So we're coming back to industry leaders. So again, if we talked about this last time, Corona and I offline, but if you think of who are some of the top minds and some of the people that we would want to learn from, and you go to their accounts, I don't really want to learn from Bob and Brad other than what are they doing that's successful. Same thing with Move You. I haven't learned anything from them, but if I listen to a guy like Dan John, Mike Boyle. There's a bunch of great names out there. And again, we can rattle off probably tens, if not hundreds of names. Brett Bartholomew is another industry leader. There's a bunch of great names. Eric Cressy. I'm going to keep coming up with names, but they tend to not be the ones who have the most followers because they're not spending time doing like, hey, like, look at my skin, look at my cleavage. And, they're just not playing that game. And some of them, there is a way to balance that. I think that was Faraz's question of, can we have that showing of the skin and, balance that out, putting celebrities or weird exercises. An example of the weird exercises that's very successful is Dr. Joel Seedman, and he'll have professional athletes and things like that. And he's talking a very extreme, very, very extreme, different concepts, similar to knees over toes, where he's saying, hey, you should only go to 90 degrees. So everything you're doing, if you're doing a pull-up, only do it to 90 degrees. And then back, if you're squatting, only go to 90 degrees. And now it stirs up, well, what's your rationale? And he has a 900-page book that he sells that's like $400. So if you want to learn more about it, like he talks about his main points, but he has that all very nailed down. A lot of his exercises are, and his social media presence is, again, celebrities, good-looking people doing very weird shit. Terry Crews, who's always a nice person to click on and look at, is doing single leg bicep curls. And it's like, is that really the thing that's going to push the needle for most people? No. And even if we're talking to the top, 0.1% of performers, I think there's a huge disconnect where, again, back to Corona's point of we all want to, all females want to look like Jennifer Lopez for the most part. And it's near impossible. And we're selling them this very fake, inauthentic experience. And that's what people are playing off of. And coming back to our mission today, and sorry for my passionate rambling, hammer, El Martillo. I just wanted to finish up by saying, again, the thesis here is we want to come back to understanding how to navigate that. And again, I don't know that there is a simple answer because I think that question was posed of how do we balance out what is the science? Again, Andrew Huberman is a really good example of that, where he's a neuroscientist and he gets a lot of criticism of trying to overly simplify things to make it accessible to the public. He claims that as his mission in every single one of his episodes. And again, I appreciate it. Sometimes he is very boring. So bottom line is, I think that there's a lot to this conversation. And Patrick, my old sensei, are you still doing karate? Patrick is the question. Sensei Madden. Anyway, but we'll hear from him in a second. But yeah, sorry guys, that was my ramble. I'm gonna throw it back to you.
But here's the thing. See, the social media algorithm keeps changing all the time. Mm-hmm. You don't have to post booty pictures and cleavage pictures or incorporate them in your content to be successful. Yes, there are accounts that use those tactics to become famous, but that's not the only thing you can use it. So for example, like you mentioned Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan doesn't show cleavage or booty pictures. He has
but he's smoking weed. He's talking about sex.
Sure,
he's appealing to a certain
that's
population.
It. And I'm glad you brought that up. And essentially, that's what it is. So for example, Bo, you post a lot of pictures on your Instagram, pictures, videos, not that don't include boobs and cleavage and butts and whatnot. But is there a reason why you don't choose to not to do that?
I try to be authentic to myself. I don't usually train topless.
And then that's what it is. It's basically how can you engage with your audience? They are engaging with their audience, and that's the audience they're targeting. Chances are there could be also a lot of folks who are following them who don't care about physiotherapy. They're just there to just get a visual treat. So no, that it's the fact 100%. Of life. You know what I'm saying? Like there could be maybe 50% of the followers are there just for visual treat purposes. And they're not there for, like, oh, how do I really fix my neck? But there could be also who are getting both benefits from it. But it's all about how you can, what kind of viewers you want to attract and how do you attract them? How do you keep growing at it? But I'll tell you this, though, even though, Bo, you may not have as many followers as the Movie You guys, but maybe your followers are probably going to be more engaging than those guys, maybe. Only because, the ones who are following you know specifically why they're following you. They're not in there for you to show their cleavage or, your ass or whatever. They want pure information in terms of how to fix their bodies. So yes, it takes some time It takes some time to get to that level. Maybe if you deploy certain tactics, certain tools, it'll get you faster. And of course, earlier you mentioned about like how, there are certain accounts who would buy followers. And I have to say though that in the past, probably 5 years ago or so, it would have been a lot easier to do so and get away with it. And there have been a lot of content creators and influencers who have purchased followers and sort of established that benchmark and then grown from there. Because when you see an account that already has 1 million followers, you'd be like, well, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about, or this person, maybe she knows what she's talking about. But I have to say, social media platforms over the years have, especially since these past 5 years, they've really cracked down on fake followers, and they're really making sure, like anything that has sort of boosted the numbers in terms of bots and everything, they eliminate them. They give them warnings. Their accounts are suspended. So there are a lot of things that are happening. So I definitely would say in this day and age, it'd be really hard to get away with if you're buying followers and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's also become hard to get followers organically because the competition is so fierce. Pretty much every other person is a content creator, and maybe if Bo showed his biceps while doing this podcast, maybe there might be 2 other followers who might join. Maybe there could be 50. Who knows?
Maybe
depending on what kind of fetish people have.
But my question for us, and I pointed to you because my question is, so I'm going to go look for someone that take care of me. I'm going to look at how many followers they have, and that's going to be the justification. It's just like somebody training with somebody else in the gym who's got a lot of people with them. Their bodies don't change, but they're a popular trainer, so people always go to them.
But think of followers as like reviews, sadly. You know what I'm saying? Like if you go to Amazon, for example, and if you're looking at a product and you look at like how many, 5 ratings has this product got, how many 4s, how many 3s, how many 2s, and the 1s. I mean, if you see pretty much a particular product has got like 1 and 2 ratings, I'm not going to buy that product. Like I know there's something off about this. So it's the same thing. So if when you look at a follower, or sorry, at an influencer that has got 1 million followers, somehow your mind will be like, okay, well, there's a reason this person has 1 million followers or more, or around that number, because he or she probably knows what they're talking about. Otherwise, how else would they have gotten these followers? I mean, whoa, look at this, all these pictures they're getting more than 1 million likes. So yeah, that sort of reassures, sadly, people that this might be legit, but that is not the case. That is not always the case, because you could have, like you said, for example, like Bo brought up, the knees over toes guys, knees over toes guys. Is that what it is?
Knees over toes guy. It's one guy.
Okay, knees over toe guys. Knees over toes guy. There you go. Right. So he, for example, has so many followers. I think he's got like 1 million followers. But at the same time, he's not technically. He doesn't have a medical qualification to share that knowledge. And yes, maybe with experience, he might have learned something, which might be knowledgeable and he could share with people, but can he give sound advice to everyone? And are you willing to take that risk of, just in case if you don't be part of that sound advice and it makes things worse for you, are you ready to take that risk? Do you even know that? Are you even aware that that's a possibility?
I think people take that risk every single day, and I think there's millions of people who take that risk every single day. I don't think there are people,
and that's why we're here.
Yeah. I mean, I really, when you're looking for something specific, when you're looking for a physical therapist, there's so many people out there. So many people doing stuff. I have a crew of people that I'll send people to. I'll send it to Bo in a heartbeat. I trust Bo. I know Bo's work. I know his care level for his client. I know that. Knees over toe guy is trying to get followers. Bo's changing the world in the sense of what he's doing with physical therapy and trying to make physical therapy better. Knees over toe guy is trying to make himself better. And I have no problem with him trying to do that. My issue is that you're saying that it works for everyone. And when you have people that are going out there and rolling that dice, and then their knees get worse and worse and worse, or they're doing some intermittent fasting, or they're taking some pill and they get sick. People, in essence, want something fast. That's what we're looking at now. They don't want to work. They don't want to put the time into it. They want it fast. They want it now. And if I can lose weight and I have to take, what was it, the apple vinegar cider pills, whatever they were, take that and I'll lose weight, I'm going to buy that and I'll do that. And if it wasn't for stuff like that that's out there, this wouldn't exist. Demand Better wouldn't exist because people would be doing what's best for them. But for some reason or another, we're like herds. We follow the herd. And because one person is going to it, may not be the right person for the next person. But everybody buys in. By the way, J-Lo does it, I'm in. And that's what we're dealing with. And I think everybody gambles all the time.
I mean, so for example, like, I know Bo brought this up earlier, like Mark Wahlberg, right? He's a big advocate, at least recently, for F-45. And I know...
Which is failing, by the way, which is going to be shut down and be a failing franchise.
Right. I mean,
anyway,
it's a soft version of CrossFit. That's the way I see it, minus...
Yeah, for sure. I'll just say real quick about that. Obviously, and this is one of the other really big takeaways from today's talk, is Mark Wahlberg is probably not doing F-45 classes for his own fitness, first of all. Second of all, he's very financially invested in F-45. So again, I think that's a huge piece of this is understanding the caution of sales. And we talked about this with Game Changers. Game Changers, the film, documentary, whatever you want to call it, on Netflix, which is pushing a plant-based agenda, was made by James Cameron, the maker of Titanic, Avatar, one of the biggest filmmakers in the world. You got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan involved, a bunch of other big names. And then on top of all that, you look at the money, and, it's not always about following the money because, we can certainly have some balances. Again, I'm a Yankees fan, so it can't just be all about the money because we're always the evil empire and everyone talks about how much money we spend. But at the end of the day, to Game Changers, his wife is the owner of a pea protein company and a plant-based protein company. So obviously it behooves them financially. Same thing with Mark Wahlberg, just to finish that and close that loop, is it's very important, I think, to understand where the rubber meets the road. And there is a gray zone and there's a lot of nuance. And that's why we're having this conversation. And this could be a multi-part talk of where's the style and where's the substance. Like I said, with these
real quick, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to show you something. Tell me if this is the right way for a pull-up. Here, let me show you. Sorry, just fast forward because I want to show you this, and this could be a great example of, for example, like here you have Mark Wahlberg about to do a pull-up, and just tell me, as a physiotherapist,
first of all, is he wearing gloves?
Yeah. Is this the right way to do pull-ups?
Just from what I can see, 100%. Well, again, for his purposes, it might be. For a bodybuilding style version of pull-ups, it might be. Again, one of the more popular versions, and Corona's shaking his head, I just want to be given the benefit of the doubt. I didn't hear what the audio, I didn't see what the caption is, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt as much as possible. But again, you look at Bar Stars with these guys in literally playgrounds in the Bronx, in New York City, all over the world. And they're doing versions kind of like that, where they're doing partial range of motion. And again, those guys have been doing that probably their whole life, like Mark Wahlberg. They probably have a significant base of strength and all that good stuff. The real quick thing from anyone who watched the video that Faraz just showed of Mark Wahlberg is he did not engage his lats. And again, he kind of did somewhere in between a CrossFit style kipping gymnastics pull up with a more just let me get some reps in by using some momentum. So there was a lot to go there. And at the end of the day, I don't know his goals. If his goal is just to be ripped, which I imagine it is as a movie star, then yeah, like maybe that's one way to get good results for him.
Okay, but, so hold that thought for a second. And then I'm glad you brought that up because here's the thing. So someone who's got no knowledge about working out or is sort of trying to get into that realm of active lifestyle and fitness and whatnot, they see Mark Wahlberg doing that. What do you think they're going to happen? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh yeah, they're going to want to duplicate that.
That's it. Because if it works for him, it's going to work for me.
But wait a minute. When they get injured, they're going to call me and Bo because they're going to get injured.
No, they won't.
Right, again,
They
again,
probably won't call you guys.
no, they probably won't, because
Yeah.
we're talking about different populations and talking to your
Sure.
audience. But
Yeah.
but this is where, again, two other really good examples of that were really popular that I will always go to is Gwyneth Paltrow, right?
Yes.
With Goop. And again, she's done an
Goop.
amazing job of marketing. But you know, she had videos where she was talking about, oh, never lift anything more than 2 pounds, ladies, because you don't want to get bulky or toned. And it's like the science is just so disconnected. And then Britney Spears, who again had I don't even know how many followers she would have had, but she was sharing what she was doing in the gym to kind of share her story. And again, we know now a lot of the mental health stuff going on, and there's a whole nother side to that story. But she was sharing all these workouts, and people within my space were passing that around like, what is she doing? Why is she doing a push-up with this very horrible form that we look at? But again, it's easy to judge, folks. I talked about Joel Seedman, who has a rationale of why he's doing these 90-degree, you know, he thinks scientifically that 90 degrees is the only way. There's cherry picking involved. There's all this stuff. Got me upset. But yeah, to your point about Mark Wahlberg, Britney Spears, Gwyneth Paltrow, whoever it is, none of those people are science people. They're not dedicating their lives to understanding what the research says, working with humans, having gone through trials and tribulations of, I did this experiment, which is what it is. When you work with people as physical therapist, personal trainer, we said it's a practice. So when you do this with 100 people and this concept, and you might be doing different stuff, but let's say I did the same intervention for 100 people and 70 of them got better, that's going to stand out in my mind of like, hey, like
But
there's
just to
something
give
here.
them, but just to give them the benefit of the doubt, you know, because they're celebrities, there's a good chance they'll have trainers, and maybe their trainers would have suggested them either for a certain ailment or a certain muscle activation, whatever it is. Either way, the point that I think that the people should take away from this, it's just like any fitness program, just like any nutritious program, it should always be customized and customized to an individual. So, you know, instead of me just looking at this, you know, pull up that Mark Wahlberg is doing and just going mindlessly and trying to do this, replicate this in the gym, because it may not be good for me. Maybe I have a shoulder impingement. Maybe I have a shoulder back problem or something like that.
Yeah,
that's
so
only going to make it worse.
Real quick, Faraz, to that whole point, going back to our personal trainer, our very first episode of this show, Demand Better from Personal Trainers, we gave away a top 5 list. And one of the main things, and it's come up time and time again,
it's in everything,
is if you are not getting an assessment for whatever you're doing, just stop. So again, let's try to summarize some of these things. So I appreciate you bringing this back to us. So what used to happen, right, was before you start any new exercise program, check with your doctor to make sure you're healthy enough for exercise. Doctors of physical therapy, for instance, we do a terrible job of marketing. And this is another reason this whole topic is triggering to me, is because we should be the primary folks when you roll your ankle or when you want to start a new exercise program. But physical therapists are so spread out in what we do. And our leadership is busy arguing over Medicare cuts because we're fighting with, again, insurance companies and chiropractors and acupuncturists and all this stuff. So I'm not going to go too far into that because you can go to my Bono's Health thing. I talk about that stuff way too much, but it's interesting stuff. So I'm bringing all that up to come back to the fact that if you're not getting an assessment from someone who even if it's virtual, some assessment to make sure you're healthy enough for exercise, you're doing the stuff right. If you see Mark Wahlberg's thing, you know, speak to somebody who can say, hey, that's not going to work for you because you don't know how to engage your lats. And you can't even hang for 20 seconds from a pull-up bar. And this was the conversation, by the way, I had to have with Faraz, which we've talked about, when he said, I want to go to the CrossFit Games, guys. And then I had to lay the hammer, which is why they call me El Martillo here on the show. And
I just want to let viewers know. I just want to let people know
I
would have been
back squat. And he didn't know. And I said, that is already a disqualifier from you.
I just didn't remember at the time.
You would have been world champion.
I know, I would have. Corona.
My bad.
Yes, you're bad.
But what we're looking at it again is the power of celebrity and people assuming that that's what Mark Wahlberg does.
But also, Corona, I just want to add to Bo's point over there for a second that I know he said that get the assessment, but get the assessment from someone qualified. Don't once again reach out to another influencer and say, hey, can you assess me? And that person has got no idea, but they are just assessing for the sake of it.
So let's go right there. We'll stay right there because we talked about this stuff. I just want to stick back to Danielle Davis. We've talked about Danielle Davis for a very, very, very long time. Okay, and the health and fitness. Danielle Davis had a body. She was 25 or 26 years old. She was a young woman. Okay. She had a really nice body. People wanted that body. They contacted her because she would go and actually go to the gym, do a video, and then post it and tell them how to get a good booty because this is what you need to do. And then she did it. And she got an incredible amount of followers. And now the state of Texas is suing her for not completing on the task of delivering these programs to these people. Fast forward, she's not a trainer. She's never trained. And now she runs a Christian experience, correct? Isn't that what I sent you? Yeah, she's running like a Christian camp now. And that's what she's doing. But you can't sit here. We go through, there's another dude here from, there's people butthole sunning. There's all sorts of people who have millions and millions of followers doing crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. But would you take their advice? But because they have 1 million followers and they're doing a fitness, because they've dumbed down exercise. They've dumbed it down. It doesn't matter because you don't need to be in front of somebody to exercise. You don't need someone to correct you. You don't need it. It's as simple as this. Open up a book, do the exercise on there. And people don't understand how intricate this stuff is because they've dumbed it down. The influencer themselves is there for themselves, period. Unless it's what are the three types of influence? There's content, there's industry leaders. You'd be an industry leader for the news for us. You know what I mean?
It's very simple. It just works for them. That's it.
Yeah.
For them, for their body type, for their genetics, for their muscle structure, bone structure, whatever. It just works for them. It's pure and simple. Anyone trying to replicate it is basically setting themselves to failure. Yes, there might be a certain population who it might work for them, and that is only because they are similar body types, or they got similar bone structure, or there is going to be some similarity. That's why it's working for them. But that doesn't mean you can't achieve similar goals. You can, but you need to put in the effort. You need to go out there, get yourself assessed from professionals, educated, knowledgeable professionals, not someone who's got 2 million followers. They're not professional. That doesn't mean they could be, but that doesn't mean that they are educated or have the right knowledge to guide you in the right path. It's as simple as that.
That's true.
I want to bring up one other example of this whole concept is I would imagine two of the most popular personal trainers when it comes to weight loss are from the show The Biggest Loser and Jillian Michaels and Bob Harper. And I've listened to them a number of times on a number of podcasts, interviews, all that stuff. Bob Harper, I might trust a little more. But Jillian Michaels, I would not direct any human being that I care about to work with her for any price for free.
But why?
If
why
they're
is
going to
that?
pay them, huh?
But why is that? Why do you say that?
Because of the knowledge and the types of things she talks about.
Yeah.
She does not display any real. I'm going to go ahead and say it. She doesn't display any real awareness, intelligence around actual science of how the human body works. And again, Biggest Loser is a very specific thing. Again, she's a celebrity trainer in the sense that she's known. She had a platform. What they did on The Biggest Loser, of course, it's going to work, but the statistics are very blatant that 90-something% of the participants gain all of their weight back, if not more, of The Biggest Loser specifically. That's not the way anyone should be losing weight. When I work with people, I work over the course of a year. And this is a really interesting example. One of my high school football teammates was on, and he was the personal trainer for the Bravo show, which was kind of a response to The Biggest Loser. I actually can't think of the name right now, but it was basically taking folks and having them in a controlled situation for a month. And it was Bravo, so it was much more storytelling. It was much more like crying. We're going to work through this. It wasn't like, what's the scale? Say right now. And like, you gained 2 pounds. Oh my God, you're getting like kicked off the show or whatever. It wasn't, whatever exploitative or whatever the terms are, very clickbaity or there's an X something. Anyway, exaggerated, but whatever. So bottom line is he did the show on Bravo. So they would take the folks who were overweight and they'd have them there and try to teach them good habits for whatever it was, 2 months, and then they would take them for 2 months and have a hybrid of them coming into their facility and then going back home and starting to integrate how they're going to go shopping in the supermarket and all that. And then they followed them for the last month to see how they were doing on their own to try to integrate these sustainable habits. That's the way it should work. That show got canceled. They even tried to change it, the format, because it just is not as sensational was the word I was looking for, not anything with an X, but it's sensationalized. It was not as sensational as The Biggest Loser. And they were trying to compete with The Biggest Loser, which is, it's cool to check in and see people get emotional and have that experience. So they're very easy examples of how one thing works, one thing fails from a TV popularity standpoint. But, and again, this is the part where it's like, there is a gray zone. And did The Biggest Loser help some other people lose weight and motivate them? Maybe. Did Tae Bo help some people? Maybe. Am I going to go tell someone to go do Tae Bo to get into shape?
Let me
Probably
guess.
not.
Maybe.
You like that? Trying to bring a little swagger into it.
No, I mean, you definitely, bring some valid points in there. But once again, and I just want to highlight just from my personal experience, you could have a personal trainer who may just be a basic trainer, but that doesn't mean that person is going to be, once again, knowledgeable enough.
I think basic trainer is a very offensive term, my friend.
And I'm going to say this to you. So 9 times out of 10,
yeah,
when people are working in gyms, unless they have a large clientele, they are trainers that are in the beginning stages of their journey most of the time. So people go out and try to get trainers in gyms, and what ends up happening, they're working with someone who is basically using you as a case study to get their business going. And that's the reality.
How easy is it to get a trainer certification?
Oh, that's a joke, dude. I can do that in an afternoon.
So Faraz, you could literally do it while we're talking right now.
So that's what I'm saying. So because let's say, I mean, I don't know how easy it's to get a trainer certificate, but bro, CrossFit Level 1 certification, the easiest thing. What, 4 hours? In 4 hours, you can actually get CrossFit Level 1 certification.
No, one of the reasons I will defend that, it's one of the only ones that's in person. What's that?
So go ahead.
It's one of the only personal trainer certifications that's in person. You can take the CSCS, that's all online test. You can take NSCA, that's an online test. You can take ACSM, that's an online test. And some of these are open book tests, which is BS. So CrossFit, first of all, is a full weekend. So that's 16 hours, not 4. So I'm going to defend them there. And you have to take a 50-question test at the end to make sure you were paying attention. It's relatively easy. I know people who have failed it for various reasons. So it's not the easiest thing. And it's $1,000. So it's not the cheapest entry point. But the fact that there's in-person queuing, that's so far ahead of most personal training certifications. I will defend, again, I don't think CrossFit does everything right. I'm not going to defend CrossFit, but to your point, to this point specifically, on paper, the CrossFit Level 1 certification is leaps and bounds ahead of, on paper, way ahead of most personal training certifications.
Even if it is.
Hold it. Before you go on, I'm going to back him on this because they do everything in one dimension. And that's why when most trainers come out of a certification, they don't have a clue what to do with someone who's in 3 dimension.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Fine. Maybe CrossFit Level 1 certification might be a little bit more advanced, but are they still going to be qualified enough to guide you in terms of nutrition, in terms of how to, address certain joint issues?
Let's back up. He's a trainer. That's his job. His job is to be a trainer. Has to be a physical trainer. You want nutrition? You better get a nutrition degree.
That's my point. Because you have trainers out there, even after CrossFit Level. I'm not saying everyone, but there are trainers out there. Whether it is your conventional, gym training, and there is CrossFit Level 1 trainers who are out there who give these advice out there, and you'll find them on social media platforms as well.
Yes,
that's what I'm trying to highlight.
And we talked about this again in our personal trainer and almost
episode 1.
Almost all of our episodes, this kind of seems to come up is, and I'll say it time and time again, is I have a little bit of a shoulder thing. My sternocleido joint here, when I hit a barbell here, it's actually been a little bothering me. Whatever, it's imbalance. So I'm actually going to go see a chiropractor before I see any physical therapists I know here in person, because I know them, I trust them. I'm happy to talk trash about chiropractors as a profession and some of the sleazy car salesman stuff they do. But at the same time, I know plenty of really good chiropractors. I know plenty of really good physical therapists, personal trainers. Again, if I was in New York City, I would go to Corona and say, hey, like, check this out. What do you think? I would want those opinions of the people who I value. So labels are what they are. So a level 1 CrossFit certification is only that, right? So some people will do that. And again, there's probably level 1 CrossFit trainers who I would trust my life with. There's probably an ACE is one of the, I would say, you can tell me, Corona, like, I think it's one of the less intense certifications. I'm not super impressed when I see that. Yeah, he's shaking his head no. For anyone listening.
No, listen. The other thing for us, just to give you a little glimpse inside. Some of these gyms have their own certification. You have to go through their certification. Some of the gyms are aligned with New York Sports Club was aligned with NASM. So
did you say
anybody NASM?
NASM.
NASM.
Oh, NASM.
So if you're going to be a trainer there, you have to go through their protocol, and you have to have a NASM certification. What does that mean? I mean, you're still working in one dimension, and when you have to do stuff with people, it's in 3 dimension, and not everybody's the same, and not everybody's that prototypical person you're going to see in the book. So it's a very, very complex thing, and one size fits all, or a influencer in this case, fits all in terms of information. I think is insane, dude. I think it's just insane.
So what's the takeaway?
I'm going to talk. We'll go back to the assessment. You got to do your research in terms of who you're talking to. I'm obviously boring, Bo, but you have to go back to the.
He's about to get his assessment.
Yeah, no, the assessment. Oh, he went to get assessment. That's good. But like we said, if you do things right, and you're looking for someone in the fitness world, there's just it's an information overload. Everybody's a guru. Everybody's smart. And you walk into these places, and there's no assessments being made. There's just proclamations being made and certainty. So it's a proclamation, and then certainty comes after it, and then people join on with them. It's not like that. Every single person's an individual. You have to look out and find out what's best for you. And what's best for you may not be the celebrity trainer. Maybe Joey in the corner who doesn't talk much but knows what the hell he's doing. You got to be careful.
I do have a Joey who's really quiet in the gym.
So one of the big takeaways I think we got to come back to try to summarize is we didn't go too deep into it, but be cautious of sales. Yeah. So again, knees over toes, like, hey, I have this $50 program. Try it out. We've had 5,000 people be successful with it. Like, yeah, and again, I do think there's some really good stuff in what he does, but knowing a little bit of how that sausage is made and offering similar services as an individual without millions of followers and a team behind me, I can tell you there's a lot of style over substance. But I like some of the substance. I'm not saying they're all wrong, but I do think it's important, again, where there's no real assessment is one of those other really big pieces. The fact, I think it's very important takeaway that there are no regulations within personal training, within the claims you make online. I think that's very important to understand that when someone is out there saying, hey, I've gotten, again, 5,000 people better with this thing. I'm not saying they're lying, but you could say that. Again, we have Danielle Davis as a really bad example. And we should be able to link to one of her, an article with her story somewhere, in the fact that, again, there's no regulation. What took her down was enough people. She literally just she didn't provide the service that she said she was going to do for people paying her. She had enough of a following that people were like, here's $1,000. And then she didn't even send them the program she said she was going to send them. So that's the only reason she was taken down. It wasn't because she was offering something that was not legitimate and didn't help people. But you look at some of these, again, really popular things. I can keep talking about all the problems, but like Herbalife, these multi-level marketing schemes, they're getting people to take these powders and move in a little bit of the right direction. You get a little bit of a community with it. You're in the Herbalife community, and you're selling and you're buying. And again, if you understand, again, anything at all about how pyramid schemes work, it's a problem. There's a lot of financial interest involved, but at the end of the day, is it doing some good? Possibly. That's that gray zone that we're talking about. So I think it's important to know if you're caught in that. Versus, again, I will hopefully always continue to provide one-on-one service. Make sure, and this is a new thing in the physical therapy, the psychology space in the United States as of January 1st, 2022. It's called the No Surprises Act. So you need to be able to lay out, hey, what are you expecting out of this? How much is this going to cost? How many sessions? What's the approximate time? You're coming in with low back pain. Okay, I expect this to take 6 sessions over the next 6 weeks. I'm going to give you online support. And if you're not, 90% better by that time, then we have a problem. And Patrick's still chiming in here. It's a vitamin scam. That's right. And he also talked about Billy Blanks making a fortune on Tybo. It's nothing more than a cardio workout. It was just packaged really well. So again, putting stuff in a shiny, this has been going on for centuries. Snake oil salesman is a thing. Again, if you promise, hey, if you drink this kombucha, you're going to feel better than ever. You're going to be healthier than ever. It's only going to cost you, 3 easy payments of $19.99 or whatever. There's all these tactics. So that's where it comes back to those questions about, you've posed it earlier, Faraz, of, that style over substance. Is it okay for MoveU to be using some kind of tactic to, to take advantage of the algorithm? But they are putting out pretty good information. So again, for MoveU is definitely one of the better ones I've seen.
Faraz, what's your takeaway?
Go to a professional. And when I say professional, someone who has an educational background and has experience in their field as well.
What did I just do to my camera?
Do not go for webcam podcast advice, because as you can see, he's not the right person for that.
What just happened?
It's not looking good, man. I mean, what is going on here?
I just tried to copy your link that you sent in the private chat.
And you flipped the camera, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Well, it's okay. I mean, we're kind of winding down anyways.
We are winding down, but I did get you the link there, buddy. Listen, I wanted. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? Because we should be doing another piece on this. I think there's a lot more here to actually talk about.
I think we threw out a lot of stuff. I apologize. We tried to organize this one as best we can, and I think there's a lot of different paths to go. I think it was important to just talk through these concepts. And again, Patrick seemed to get some stuff out of it at the very least. He's one of the few folks tuning in live, and I hope folks get this. So we're always asking you guys to chime in, tell us what your experience is, what you think. Leave us some comments, ratings, reviews, all that good stuff.
Hey, Dr. Bo. You forgot about Dave Kittle, who said, "Hey,
yeah."
Dr.
Dave
Bo.
only said hi to Bo and Corona, and not Faraz. I don't know what's up with that.
Well, but he's listening to us live. We should acknowledge our followers here. And Bo, with that being said, I want to reiterate we are sponsored by FitCare Physiotherapy Wellness, where the idea is to focus on your fitness, so you can avoid the healthcare space. Listen, like Bo said, we really appreciate your time. We thank you guys all for joining us. We will be on every 2 weeks. We will be back to schedule. It's Faraz Javed there. So thank you for coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And we'll catch you the next time. Make sure you demand better. If you like what we're doing, man, don't forget to give us a little like. You know what I'm saying? Because we're waiting for it. Lots of love. Have a great weekend. Deuces.
Bye.
Peace.
Go to Dubai.